As you may or may not know, my wife and I just got back from Vegas. It was a great trip. We ate, we drank, we had a blast. But then we got home and looked at the credit card, and I gotta say, it doesn't matter how much fun you're having, $25 for a drink is a ripoff. Frickin' Vegas. I hate getting ripped off, and so do the lads over at Harry's. They spent years watching the razor blade companies rip people off and said, no more. Not all heroes wear capes, my friends, and they want to prove that they're legit by offering you hot dogs a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. I've been telling you about them for months, and I'm genuinely proud to have Harry's as a sponsor of this show. I wasn't kidding. The plastic, futuristic-looking crap razors you get at the store are overpriced and they're poor quality. Harry's blades are crisp, clean, and classy. They're the kind of razor you'd expect your grandpa to have on his bathroom counter. And most importantly, they work. Shave after shave, they're so smooth, they're precise. I used to go through the crappy store blades all the time, but Harry's are built to last. And they're not just better quality than the other names, they're more affordable. And they deliver. Just set your schedule, and for as little as $2, new blades, shaving creams, lotions, everything you need, right to your door when you need it. I genuinely cannot think of a reason not to try Harry's. And I'm not just saying this because they're sponsors. They're the best shaving supplies I've ever used. Try them out, and if you're not happy, your shave's on them. And unlike the other subscriptions, they're really easy to cancel if you want to too, which is a nice bonus, but believe me, you're not going to want to cancel. Getting ripped off isn't funny. Switch to Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. That's harrys.com/RTG for a $3 trial set. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Remember the Game. It is my retro gaming podcast where every week a buddy of mine and I sit down and we geek out about the games we played back in the day. My name is Adam Blank. Thank you so much for listening to the show. And this week it is episode 205, and we're launching our second batch of revisited episodes. Every couple of months we take another look at a game we covered back in like season 1, the baby days of Remember the Game, when we had even less of an idea of what we were doing than we do now. We started doing this on episode 105, and then we did it every 10 episodes after that, and we're going to continue the tradition through the 200s at least, because this week, for Remember the Game number 205, we're taking another look at the game we covered way back on episode 14, WWF No Mercy for the Nintendo 64. And anyone that listens to this podcast with any regularity probably knows that this is absolutely one of my favorite video games of all time. It's the best wrestling game from the best wrestling era, one of the best times of my life. And it's on the doorstep of perfection. It's not quite there. I have a couple of minor criticisms. Plus, some of you probably remember there were copies that like wiped out your save files and stuff. It's pretty hard to give a game a perfect score when it does that. So it's not quite Mr. Perfect levels of perfect, but it's really fucking close. I love this stupid game so much. And when I decided to do another batch of revisited episodes, I looked back on some more of the old games we haven't revisited yet, and there was like Link's Awakening, Super Mario Bros. 3, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, Chrono Trigger, Smash Bros. Melee. All great games to choose from, but no way in fuck I was doing any of them before my beloved diggity dog, WWF No Mercy. My pal Mark Majot makes his podcast debut this week. Mark is one of the hosts of the outstanding movie, comic, TV, nerd culture podcast, MCTV. He is a very good dude. We've been talking about collaborating on podcasting for quite a while now, and we figured it was time to finally unite the brothers of podcasting, much like the brothers of destruction in WWF No Mercy, and give you an episode that you'll hopefully never forget. And we'll get there in just a minute, because speaking of stuff that you'll hopefully never forget, it's time for yet another edition of the Remember the Game infamous intro. Dun, 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 dun. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome aboard. Consider this your warning. Our intros are kind of long, but they're fun. You know what our intro is? It's the old WWF Raw opening, like Thorn in Your Eye. And anyone that grew up in that era in Austin walking through the fucking warehouse and the flaming garbage cans and oh my gosh, so good. But if you are only here for No Mercy talk, if you want to skip the intro, go about 30 minutes up the road and boom, you'll hear the music and you'll be into the WWF No Mercy talk. I got to get my plugs out of the way because that's how we pay the bills. We have merchandise, hoodies, t-shirts, coffee mugs, posters, tank tops, all kinds of stuff. Rocking incredible art drawn by my man Joe from 4545creative.com. You can check out all of our merchandise at rememberthegamepodcast.com if you are interested. We ship worldwide. Well, we don't. Spring does. We go with Spring. But either way, that's the name of the company that makes it. Whatever. You can check it out there if you want to. It's a great way to support the show. And if you're like me and you're like, I don't care for close, I'm a bit of a nudist, you can always just support us over on the old Patreon box because for just $2 a month, you get 2 extra podcasts every week. 2 extra podcasts a week. For $2 a month. It's like 50 cents a week. You get exclusive access to my gaming news show, Game Patch, every Friday, where I look at all the biggest news in modern video games and I add in my opinions and some profanity and stuff in there. And Expansion Pass goes live every Thursday, and it's a different show each week. We do game rankings. We look back at characters, consoles. We do some comedy episodes. There's modern game reviews. This past week on Expansion Pass, our topic was in the hands of our Patreons, and the games I refuse to play ran away with the topic poll. So once and for all, I dug my heels in. I went full bad guy, villain, and I just explained what games I'm never going to touch and why I will never touch them. And as is becoming tradition during the intro, here is a sneak peek of last week's episode of Expansion Pass, the games I refuse to play. Sometimes I'll ask them like, yo, is there a game you really want to cover? Because if I can find a little bit of time to squeak it in, I'll do it because God knows they do me the favor of playing games for me to cover on the show. And Mark McHugh in particular has been up my ass like a fucking hemorrhoid being like, did hemorrhoids go up your ass? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Mark McHugh has been up my ass about Persona. He's like, we got to do a Persona episode. We got to do a Persona episode. They're obnoxiously long. I've played Persona 4 Golden on my PS Vita. I actually really liked it. I probably put 50 or 60 hours into it though. And then I looked it up and I was like, I'm still only like halfway through. And I was like, nay, that's enough. I mislike this. You don't fucking take 100 hours of my fucking time. That's not, especially not for a goddamn RPG. So the reason we haven't covered Persona 4 Golden on the show is because I didn't get far enough into it to do a whole episode about it. And I'm never playing a Persona game again. Not because I think they're bad, but because they're just too fucking long. I can't eat it. I can't eat that much. I can't do it. So that's now available in our archives. And this week for Expansion Pass number 118, I went with the runner-up from that topic poll because it's a topic that I've wanted to cover on Expansion Pass for quite a while now. It's our gaming guilty pleasures. You know, those games you don't want people to know that you play, or maybe the game you know sucks, that you shouldn't be supporting, but you just can't walk away from anyways. It's guilty pleasures. I think it's going to be fun. I actually have already recorded it because I'm going away on, actually, as you're hearing this, I'm away on holidays. But I have all the episodes pre-recorded. I think it made for a fun podcast, so that's available now if you're interested. Again, $2 gets you 2 additional shows every week, plus instant access to about 200 archived episodes. Plus, you can join our Remember the Game Discord, which is growing like a fucking weed. You get a chance to vote in our Patreon poll at the beginning of every month, which is actually running right now. You get the ability to submit comments to be read on all of our podcasts, and you're going to get a shout-out and get to hear me mispronounce your name like I'm about to do to most of these people. A huge thank you to our newest Patreons. There's a lot of them, and I'm going to screw some of these up bad. Kimo Sabe, Halifax Highlander, Dougie Fresh, Cameron Chase, I hope you guys didn't just hear that. I forgot to turn my sound notifications off on my computer. So if you heard that, I apologize. Dougie Fresh, Cameron Chase, Big Hebrew, Nutsack 69420. Fucking love that. Hitchy Poo, Ryan Fagin, Christopher, Skylar Baird, Daniel Matthews, Bryn Hughes, Suplex Sunny, Calvin Sixing Liu, Darth Brooks, Flynn Birchfield, Carrie Chicaro, Christian Jimenez, Pinto Mint, Super Swede Joachim. Dude, I'm so bad at this. Super Swede Joachim, Tyler Hetty, Alex Pete, Clayton Fuller, Brian from the Tone Jerks podcast, Vincent Juno, Matthew Petroni, Will Zedier, I don't know if this one's Ian or Len, because I don't know if it's a lowercase L or an uppercase I. So Ian or Len and Joel McKinnon. And if I fucked up your names in there, wear it as a badge of honor. I only mispronounce the names of the people I really like. Or maybe I just suck at this job. Either way, thank you all so much for the support. Welcome to Remember the Game Industries. And please don't forget to wrap up the sales pitch. 5% of our Patreon every month is being added to a pool, and it's going to be donated to my Remember the Children 24-hour charity stream at the end of the year for the Stollery Children's Hospital here in Edmonton. We're over $1,200 raised, and we still have half a year to go. So you get a ton of extra podcasts, you help me out, and we donate some money to charity. It's wins all around. Patreon.com/rememberthegame if you're interested. And you can find me on Twitch. I will warn you, I'm going to be away for a couple of weeks, but just throw me a follow over there, and then it'll tell you when I'm online, and you can come by and look at my stupid face. Twitch.tv/memberthegame if you're interested. All right? There you go. That's all your plugs. That's enough blowing myself. Let's blow some of you by blowing in the cartridges. It is our opening segment here on the show. I read a few comments and questions from our patrons, usually gaming related, but not always. And we call this segment Blowing in the Cartridge.
He blows all right. He blows big time.
That's it, honey. Get into the spirit.
Let's blow. Our first blower this week is GC Freak 898, who wrote in and said, "Hey Adam, how's that PlayStation 2 working out for you, and how do you have it hooked up?" So if you don't know, I'm currently playing the original Ratchet and Clank for an upcoming episode of Remember the Game because it won June's Patreon poll, and I have a backwards compatible PS3, but I put the PS2 version of Ratchet and Clank in it, and it just chugged. Like the frame rate was it was almost unplayable. And I was like, what the fuck? Because I've played lots of PS2 games on my PS3 and never had a problem. And then I looked it up, and it turns out there's just the odd old school like PS2 game that doesn't run well on the backwards compatible PS3. And unfortunately, Ratchet and Clank is one of them. So I picked up a PS2 Slim off of Kijiji, which apparently not everybody has Kijiji. I've brought that up, and some people are like, what's Kijiji? It's like Craigslist. It's like a buy and sell site. So I picked a cheap PS2 Slim up on there, and it is run it's run silky smooth. I'm almost done Ratchet and Clank. It's fucking awesome, by the way. And it's run great. So if you're wondering how I have it hooked up, I actually bought an adapter. What are those? What are the red, white, and yellow cables? I think those are AV cables. If I'm using the wrong terms, fucking yell at me. I don't care. But anyway, I bought this adapter a while back, and it was cheap. I got it off Amazon for like $20, and it has an input for those red, white, and yellow AV cables, and then an output of HDMI. And I use it for my GameCube, I use it for my Nintendo 64, and now I use it for my PlayStation 2. And I can stream off of it. It goes onto a 4K monitor. It's not perfect. It's a little fuzzy, but for the price, it works really, really well. So good investment, I think. Just in case I run into any more issues with this PS3, I got a PS2 for backup now. I went from I'm not collecting old games to being like, now I've got a 64, a GameCube, a PS2, a PS3. Fucking throw them on the pile. Why the fuck not? But it's working good. And speaking of using retro games on modern TVs, my left nut wrote in and said, "Hi, Adam, what kind of TV do you use for gaming? Does it have a CRT, aka tube TV? Is it LCD, or is it an OLED display? Or do you use different types of TV for retro versus modern consoles? Thanks for all the podcasts." Thanks for listening, left nut. Maybe this is going to drive some people crazy. I have a 4K monitor, and I just play everything on it. Every system I just rambled off. So like, cause most of my retro stuff, I either play off of like the Switch Online or backwards compatible on my PS3 or old school Xbox games. But I just have a 4K monitor, and I've got my PS5, my Xbox Series X, my Nintendo Switch, my backwards compatible PS3, my GameCube, my Nintendo 64, my PS2, and then I have classic consoles for the NES, SNES, PlayStation, and Genesis, which may or may not have been hacked. And all of them just feed into a giant switch that goes into a capture card, and then the capture card goes out into my 4K monitor, and I just play everything on there. And some of the old school stuff, like my GameCube, my PS2, they look a little fuzzy on the monitor, but it's actually, I don't know, maybe it's because it's a small monitor compared to like a giant 60-inch TV. I don't think they look that bad. They're a little bit blurry, but like I've heard people talk about how retro stuff looks like shit on modern monitors and stuff, and I haven't had that problem. I think it looks pretty decent. So I just play everything on that because I don't have room in here for a whole bunch of old TVs and stuff, and like to me, as long as I can see it and I can play it, I'm good. That's all that matters to me. Like ideally, yeah, I would love to have like an old CRT TV to hook this shit up to and stuff, but limited real estate in here. It works on the monitor. It works just fine. MC Akio wrote in and said, "Hey Blank, after listening to the last episode of your smash hit, Remember the Game, a question arose from my fried brain. Everyone brings up the Wii, the PS2, and so on, but what about Flash games? I remember loving computer class only to hop on Netscape and go on Miniclip and Funbrain to play games like Redbeard and Mighty Guy. I was wondering if you had a similar experience growing up. I also wanted to ask if you would ever cover Flash games in general on Remember the Game or Expansion Pass, if you haven't already. Keep doing a great job, King." Oh, that's nice. I don't have a lot of experience with Flash games. I don't entirely, you're all gonna fucking be like, blah, 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 blah. I don't entirely know what Flash games are. I think I do, but like so by the time I even really had the internet at school, I was in like junior high and high school, and the only thing I really played with that was we used to download ROMs until the school got mad at us and we weren't allowed to do it anymore. I used to play games like, we've covered some of them: Dino Park Tycoon, Oregon Trail. Somebody mentioned in the comments, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, I couldn't squeeze you in. Somebody mentioned The Incredible Machine or something. We used to play something like that, but I don't think I played, like, I don't recognize Miniclip or Funbrain at all. So I don't think okay. So we'd hop on Netscape and go on Miniclip and Funbrain to play games like Redbeard and Mighty Guy. Yeah, I gotta say that none of those ring a bell to me at all. So I don't think I played any of those. So I'm not going to say we'll never cover Flash games, but I don't think I really have any experience with them. So I wouldn't expect us to cover them anytime soon. Maybe that's not the answer you guys were looking for. I've pretty well exhausted my my computer, like between Dino Park Tycoon, Roller Coaster Tycoon, Oregon Trail. I mean, maybe Doom, I guess, and we've covered Doom. I think I've covered pretty well every PC game that I know well enough to do an episode about, with the exception of like maybe Minesweeper. And I don't know if I can handle a full podcast of Minesweeper. I don't think there's anything else on PC that I've played enough from any generation to carry an episode about. So for all of you people looking for more PC episodes, I hate to burst your bubble, but I don't think I can do any more of them because I don't have any more experience. Maybe Maniac Mansion, but I played that on the NES. I didn't play it on PC. Anyways, thanks for writing in, MC. They Call Me Badger wrote in and said, "Since this is a wrestling episode, I feel inspired to let wrestling fans from the Ruthless Aggression era know that JBL might not have been the WWE champion we wanted, but he was most definitely the one we needed." I just quickly want to say, we won't spend this whole intro talking wrestling, but yeah, like I love heels, which are the bad guys in wrestling. I fucking despise JBL because he just seems like the world's biggest piece of shit. Not on camera, but away, like all the stories of him being a fucking asshole in the locker room and stuff like that. But looking back on it, I do agree with you, Badger. What a phenomenal heel. What a great sack of shit. And like, what a great foil for like Eddie Guerrero and stuff. I fucking hate JBL, but that was his job, was to make you fucking hate him. And Joey Styles beat him up, so fuck him. And Velius, I don't know how to say that fucking name, and you've even told me and I don't remember. Velius the devil, I don't know. Wrote in and said, "Wrestling used to be a huge thing in my family when I was a kid, specifically the WWF. Every time there was a Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, or any of the big events, my whole family would get together and have barbecues. These are some of my best memories with my family. I'll never forget when Yokozuna killed The Undertaker and he rose from the dead, or when Lex Luger body slammed Yokozuna on that battleship. I fell out of love with wrestling when it started to become more obviously scripted, but I'll always cherish those memories with my family. Did your whole family love wrestling like mine, or was it more of just a you thing? Cheers." Unfortunately, it was mostly me. My dad used to make fun of me for watching wrestling, and my mom didn't really care. My little brother watched it with me occasionally, but that was mostly a me thing. I wish my whole family had watched it. I would have loved to watch it with my family, but I was never able to order the pay-per-views because we couldn't afford it. When I got a little bit older and I had a job, I used to like go out to like restaurants and eat with my friends to watch the pay-per-views. But I don't think I watched. I think WrestleMania 14 was the first pay-per-view I watched live. Not in person, but like live on pay-per-view. I think it was the first one, because that was the first time I had money or I could go out and watch it and like order some food at a restaurant and sit there and watch the pay-per-view. I wish my family had been into it though. A couple more. No more wrestling, I promise. Until WWF No Mercy anyway. John M. Watkins wrote in and said, "If Remember the Game Industries was a video game with you as the protagonist, who would be the antagonist?" I've actually spent a lot of time thinking about this, John, and I think my first thought is to run a Sinister Six style villains, and the villains would be Echo the Dolphin, Mallow from Super Mario RPG, Big the Cat, Kate Sith, or whatever the fuck that thing's name is from Final Fantasy VII, that weird Chef Quinoa thing from Final Fantasy IX, and the Sega Saturn. That would be the enemies, and like Sega Saturn would be the leader of the Sinister Saturn 6. Or it would be Darkside Phil, the fucking streamer, because I hate that fucking guy. That would be my enemies. And the 16-bit Big Boss wrote in and said, in an earlier episode, you mentioned that the only person in the Remember the Game Hall of Fame was Bubsy. But in the Mario Tennis episode, you said it's just Waluigi. What did Bubsy do to get kicked out? Bubsy didn't do anything to get kicked out. It's just much like the rest of the gaming world. Sometimes we forget that he's around. That's all it is. I love Bubsy. And finally, it's letter time. It's letter time. Zoidberg Jesus 17 wrote in and said, hey, Adam, did you hear about the guy who bought $40,000 worth of Nintendo stock? He apparently bought it so he could attend a shareholders meeting and ask about game remakes, including F-Zero. If you were in his shoes, what games would you have asked about why they haven't been remade yet? For the record, we're going to get into this story on Game Patch this week. But a ton of people tagged me in this story and were like, yo, did you see this? Yo, was this you? For the record, it was not me, but if I had $40,000 to blow, I'd like to think I would spend it on something as cool as this. If I was that person, F-Zero is the first game that I would have asked Nintendo about. I love it. I think this is such like, I mean, like, it's not like he just wasted $40,000. Like, it's not like he spent it to get into this meeting. Like, he bought stock. He can sell the stock and either make or lose money or whatever. Like, it's not like he just out 40 grand. I still think it's fucking sick though. F-Zero is definitely one of the ones I would ask about. Punch-Out is another one that I would ask about. I know some of you would probably be like, ask about Star Fox for us. I don't really like Star Fox, so I don't think I would ask about Star Fox. I would put their balls to the fire and be like, where the fuck is my new Donkey Kong game? And I think I would be like, where in the fuck is Mother 3? And I know exactly where Mother 3 is. I've talked about this before because I've played Mother 3. There are characters in that game that are critical to the plot that I think Nintendo's worried about potential backlash for releasing. So I don't think they're ever going to release that game, but I would still put them on the spot and be like, where the fuck is Mother 3? Also, I would tell them, give us GameCube games. I don't think they're ever going to put GameCube games on Nintendo Online, but like, just sell them to us. People will pay $20 for fucking GameCube games on the Switch. Put those GameCube games on there. And then finally, I would be like, why can't I get me no Tang round here? And another thing, and then I would flush a toilet. And shout out to anyone that gets that reference. Thank you for writing in, Zoidberg. I love I fucking love that F-Zero story. And you know what? Thank you to all of you that tagged me in the F-Zero story asking if it was me. That warms my heart that my passion for Mario or for F-Zero is known throughout the Remember the Game industry's ecosystem. That just makes me feel good. So thanks to everybody that wrote in this week. I appreciate it as always. Let's change things up and let's get into our Smash Hit segment, the official game show of Remember the Game industry's Play One, Remake One, Erase One. And a huge thank you to Classic Concentration from the NES for unknowingly providing us with the theme music for the show. The rules are simple. Every week I give our patrons 3 retro video games. They can play one as it was released, remake one as a modern game, and the third is erased from time forever. And as always, there are no wrong answers, but there is a right one. We'll get to it in just a minute because we're talking wrestling this week, particularly 90s wrestling with WWF No Mercy. So I went with 3 more wrestling titles. We have WWF SmackDown for the PlayStation, WWF Attitude for PlayStation and Nintendo 64, and WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game, which some people shit on, but I actually thought it was pretty fun. 40% of you said you would play SmackDown, remake Attitude, and erase WrestleMania, the arcade game. That is not the right answer. Let me see what a few of you had to say here, and then I'll tell you what the correct answer was. Curtis, who spells it with a K, by the way, and I'll point out why I fucking pointed that out in a second. Curtis with a K wrote in and said, wrestling is fake. Did you know that, blank? Oh, well, you're on double secret fucking probation. Did you know that, Curtis with a fucking K? You dink. Get the fuck out of my house. Lil Bunny Fufu 89 wrote in and said, this is a rough one because I want to erase Attitude and WrestleMania, the arcade game. They're both really bad disappointments from my childhood, and I wish I could erase those memories. But if I have to play by the rules, I'll play SmackDown. I'm sure it's dated and a little archaic now since it was by the time Here Come the Pain came out, but it's the only good game in the bunch, and I have some good memories of it. I'll remake Attitude. That roster with WWE 2K22's engine would be amazing. I'll erase WrestleMania. Seriously, what were they thinking? Try it and you'll see. Even worse that they made a sequel in your house on PlayStation 1 that I got as a present. It's not better, in case you were wondering. Listen, I gotta say, a lot of people dunked on WrestleMania, the arcade game, on this edition of Play One, Remake One, Erase One, as you're about to hear. It's not that bad. I don't think it's that. I think it's better than Attitude. And I loved Attitude as a kid, but Attitude fucking sucks. And if you don't remember, try playing it now. Outside of the roster, there's nothing good about that fucking game. Nothing. Bad Fish wrote in and said, yo, So erase SmackDown, play Attitude, remake the oldie. I'm sorry to erase SmackDown, but I never played it, and I can't in good mind erase Attitude. I'm an 80s baby, so I remember playing that old game, and damn it, I would love to see it remade. Oh my God, no, dude. Fuck, I hate Attitude. Fuck. I'll explain my answer in a minute. Shawsome1 wrote in and said, easy. Play SmackDown because that game is still amazing today. Remake WrestleMania because in its own way, it's quite fun and I'd love to see more characters in it. And erase WWF Attitude because fuck that game and Ahmed Johnson. He was a bastard to fight. So much rage playing against him. I love that you erased that game, not because it sucks, but because Ahmed Johnson owned your ass in it. You're all right. It's the only one of the three with Ahmed in it. So I guess if you're anti-Ahmed Johnson, and a lot of people are, that's sound logic. Fair enough. Tim C. wrote in and said, wow, I don't normally comment and I love to just listen, but this one touched a chord deep inside me. I'll play Attitude. All I have to do is pull out the old PS1 memory card from storage and my create a wrestler that is a cross between Val Venus and Rick Rude with the Intercontinental title, and thousands of screaming ladies would be ready to rock. Remake WrestleMania. This cabinet has to be on the OG short list of arcade must-haves. So many quarters dropped in this guy. I could be Doink the Clown. Oh, so I could be Doink the Clown and do nothing but try to give my brother jumping pile drivers. My remake would include adding more wrestlers. Otherwise, it's perfect as it is. Sorry, SmackDown. You get deleted because the other two have me covered and smiling. See, and I have no beef with that. If you have the nostalgic attachment, I get it. And yeah, Doink the Clown. How do you not love a game with Doink the fucking Clown in it? And Jerry Robinson wrote in and said, been a long time since I've done this, but I'd love Attitude, so I'll keep it as it is. Remake WrestleMania because of nostalgia with most wrestlers being from my time. Get rid of SmackDown. I played it a few times and it wasn't good. Just Bring It was a lot better, as well as Here Comes the Pain. Of course they were, but I'm not going to say all three of these games are good because I think Attitude sucks. WrestleMania was rough around the edges. SmackDown was a good game. I liked SmackDown. I'm going with the runner-up order this week. 20% of you voted the same way I did, including Blaine the Hoagie Man, who said I'd play SmackDown because I used to play the hell out of it, and I'm sure it would hold up today. I'll remake WrestleMania, the arcade game, because arcade-style wrestling games are the best. Just update the graphics and add more to the roster. And I'll erase Attitude. It's just not as good as the SmackDown series, so it's got to go. See, I agree with your logic, but you weren't as nice about it as me. I'm going to play SmackDown because I think it's the most enjoyable of the three, and I don't give a fuck what you say. The career mode in that game with the rankings and the title histories and stuff was fire. I loved WWF SmackDown. I played the shit out of that game. I'm going to remake WrestleMania, the arcade game, because I think it was a really cool idea, and I still think it looks great today. I love, like, The Undertaker throwing punches with his glowing fist and hitting people with the tombstone, an actual tombstone and stuff like that. I liked WrestleMania, the arcade game, so I would remake it and just make it, like, less shitty, but keep it looking like it did, because I think it was sick. Imagine, like, John Cena, and you could, like, pull out a chain and hit somebody with it, and, oh, fucking, that'd be ridiculous. And then I'm going to erase WWF Attitude, because I loved it back in its day. But aside from its massive roster, it fucking sucked. I played WWF Attitude until WWF WrestleMania 2000 came out, which was basically like the prequel to No Mercy. Because at that point, these games were being made for WCW. And I loved like WCW NWO World Tour and Revenge, but I wanted the WWF wrestlers. So I play Attitude for the sake of having my hands on the WWF roster. But then once I got my hands on WrestleMania 2000, I was like, I'm never touching WWF Attitude again. Fuck that game. Fucking sucked. The only thing I remember about Attitude was before each match, the wrestlers would stand there and look at each other, and Triple H always had a line, and it was something like, tell your girlfriend I left my watch on her nightstand. And I always thought it was like such a funny thing to say, and then we'd just walk around like robots and try to put moves in, and they wouldn't fucking work. And anyway, so I had a race Attitude. Thank you to everyone that wrote in and played this week, as always. What have I been up to over the last 7 days? And then we'll get into WWF No Mercy. I've already told you, but I'm playing Ratchet & Clank, the original PlayStation 2 game, to get ready for an episode of this. I've only ever played the modern Ratchet & Clank, like the remake or whatever it is on PS4, and then Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart on PS5. I loved both of them, and I'm really enjoying the original. It shows its age when you've played the modern ones first, but that's not its fault. I like the Ratchet & Clank series, and Ratchet's awesome. Actually, I like Clank even better, I think, but I like them both, so I'm really enjoying that. I played a little bit of Silent Hill 3 and then benched it because I was like, I can't do it and Ratchet & Clank. So Silent Hill 3 is next up on my list. I'll go back to it once I'm done Ratchet. And then I'm a little ashamed of it, but I've been playing a little bit of Slay the Spire when I just want to relax at night. And I've been playing a little bit of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater remakes when I just need a break from Ratchet & Clank. And those fucking remakes are really good. I might actually do an expansion pass review of the Tony Hawk remakes sometime this summer when I'm done them. Because holy fuck, they're good. And now I'm more mad that we didn't get the 3 and 4 remakes, but I digress. That's a different topic for a different show. Let's talk WWF No Mercy. That's why you kids are here. I like to give our listeners a chance to sound off about the game we're talking about. talking about? Before my guest and I hog the spotlight, Nutsack69420 wrote in and said, the best wrestling game, period. I would spend hours creating characters. I would create a new member of DX who was part Triple H and part Jeff Hardy. Every move would be a finisher. Suck it. That warms my heart. I love that. DJ Olsh wrote in and said, this was in constant rotation of my games that stayed in my system when I was at my friends, or when it was my friends and I playing, one of which I know you'll never cover. Holy fuck, I got to reread this. This was in constant rotation of my games that stayed in my system when it was my friends and I playing, one of which I know you'll never cover, being Rush 2 Extreme Racing. We had GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, and we had WWF No Mercy. The memories run deep for this game, and the friendships ruined and then made up with because of this game. So many good times. Yeah, like I've said many times, my favorite gaming memories ever are playing WWF No Mercy multiplayer with my friends. My favorite my favorite video game memories ever are playing No Mercy with my friends. I hold this game in that high of esteem. So much fun. Miloshki, I hope I said that right, said the original podcast for this game was how I first discovered Remember the Game. Some of my favorite memories stem from this and all of the THQ Akai Nintendo 64 wrestling games. My friends and I would get together for every Raw and pay-per-view. We'd trampoline wrestle and, of course, play these games. We'd set up our own pay-per-views, our own titles, and we even had a cardboard version of our belt that we'd write the champs' names on. We're all older now with families, but we still try to get together a couple times a year, play guitars, and break out the Nintendo 64 and put a few titles on the line. Dude, how many people didn't, like, Mark did it, my guest this week. I used to do that. My friends had like wrestling leagues and championships. We kept track of it, everything. It was just people that grew up after late 90s pro wrestling. I get that like the Ruthless Aggression era was incredible, but you just don't know how good we had it. Being in high school during the Attitude Era was just fucking magical. Dylan Van Winkle wrote in and said, this game absolutely fucked. I'm only 21, so I definitely shouldn't have grown up with the 64, but boy, am I glad I did. Some of my fondest memories as a child are sitting down and playing Mario 64, Mario Party, and yes, WWF No Mercy. The game was fucking awesome. Picking Stone Cold and stomping an absolute mud hole through The Rock's chest was the highlight of some of my days as a kid. Like I said, I wasn't supposed to grow up with a 64, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. That warms my heart as well, Dylan. Listen, we got so many comments about WWF No Mercy. I fucking love it. I can't read them all, but anyone that grew up playing it and loving wrestling, just you know what's up. I get it. You get it. We all get it. Fucking WWF No Mercy. Oh my God. I'm so excited for this. Let's do it. Let's talk No Mercy. You can hear the smile in my face. This game means so goddamn much to me. I'm going to cue up some WWF No Mercy music. And when it stops, my pal Mark Majot and I are going to take another look at the iconic WWF No Mercy, which originally released in North America on the Nintendo 64 with a game, a racing glitch, which we'll talk about on November 13th, 2000. Enjoy the podcast, everybody. Let's go. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Everyone that listens to this podcast knows about our illustrious CEO, my dog Molly. But the other silent partner behind the scenes is my wife. And let me tell you, my friends, a 17-year relationship with another person that has to talk to and live with you is a lot harder to maintain than one with a dog. We've had our ups and downs, and as you all know, a relationship isn't all sunshine and rainbows. They can be a lot of work. You get out what you put in when it comes to relationships, and talking to a therapist can be a fantastic way to put in some work. They can help you work through your issues, learn to communicate better, and even just provide you with an ear to bend when you need it. I've talked to my therapist about my relationships, especially when it came to my stand-up comedy career and how much I was away from home, and they helped me work on ways to keep my relationship strong even when I was out on the road. It turned out our relationship was actually better when I was out on the road, but that's a story for another day. And I know, right? Therapy. Who has the time these days? BetterHelp hears you, and they're making it easy. Fill out a quick form online, and they'll match you up with a therapist that suits your needs and that'll work around your schedule. You pick the meet times, and you can get your therapy fix from anywhere, over video, phone, or just chat. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/RememberTheGame today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/RememberTheGame.
Diggity dog. Diggity dog.
Okay, joining me via the blank phone this week for the first of our second run of revisited episodes, because we've already done this. You guys know why we're revisiting stuff, because the early episodes suck. Is a newcomer to the show, but a good friend of mine, great fucking guy here in the city of Edmonton. It's my man, Mark Majot. Mark, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Adam, this is fantastic. I'm doing well. When I got the call to do not only this podcast, but this game, I was so fired up. When you texted me about doing this, I fired back that No Mercy is locked and loaded in my Nintendo in my office about 6 feet from me right now. Yeah. So I didn't even have to revisit it, man. Like, I still jump into this game probably more than I should, especially when I have like a PS5 downstairs. Right. I'm still hooked on this game and this console, really. Like, I'm excited to jump into this conversation.
I love that. Yeah, because you're right. Like, you and I have been talking about hooking up for an episode for a while, and just the stars haven't aligned. And then I was like, I know I'm revisiting No More. This dude, as soon as we hit episode 200, and I knew I was doing another run of Revisited, I was like, No Mercy is the first one I'm going to, because longtime listeners to this podcast know that, like, it's the admiration I have for this game is almost unparalleled. Like, some of my favorite memories are of this game, and I knew you were going to be the guy right away. But when I text you and, like, yeah, within seconds you send me a picture, so I know you didn't like run and set it up. Like, within seconds you're just like, yes, it's right here. I was like, fucking A, Mark, you know what's up.
Yep,
dude.
What? It was a sign from the universe that this was meant to be.
Oh, buddy. And it's great that you say that, like, you have a PS5 downstairs, but you still go to this, because, like, I get it. And I think a lot of our listeners get it. Listen, I love modern games as much as the next person. I play them all the time. They're great. But, like, there's something about, like, I love all retro games, good and bad. There's just something about, I assume it's the way movie buffs feel about old movies and stuff. Like, I'm not a movie guy, but there's just something special about those old, like, old VHS tapes from the 80s and 70s and whatever. I don't know when they came out. I don't fucking know. I don't know about movies.
And especially this console, because, like, growing up, we were always like a PlayStation family.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Nintendo consoles, especially like with No Mercy, Revenge, all those games. And I grew up a huge wrestling. So I'm a big wrestling fan.
Yeah.
I feel like PlayStation didn't really have good wrestling titles.
No.
So this was always a game we go rent. Like, this is peak. I was like 12 years old when this game came out. So this is peak, like, sleepover at a buddy's house, play for hours and hours. The N64 was such a foreign concept to me. Just seeing a thing with 4 controller ports at the front, like this weird 3-prong control. Like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And then you quickly pick it up, and like, wrestling for N64, it's hard to believe how fun those games were, and they still play so well 25 years later.
Yeah, they're unparalleled. Like, I have never hidden the fact that, like, I'm a Nintendo fanboy, but the Nintendo 64 and I have never been best friends. Like, like, outside of multiplayer, I can live without the Nintendo 64. But it's maybe, and I've said it countless times on the show, for my money, it may be my favorite multiplayer system of all time. And sure, there's the Mario Karts, and there's the Mario Parties, and there's the GoldenEyes, and there's the stuff like that. But you're right. It's as I know you and I are both massive wrestling fans, and I don't hate the SmackDown games on the original PlayStation, but, like, I think most old school wrestling fans will agree that, like, the quartet of WCW NWO World Tour, Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, and WWF No Mercy is just, like, it's untouchable. And to this day, like, I've been playing WWE 2K22, and it's actually pretty good. Like, it's a semi return to form for WWE, which is great. But I'm like, it's unbelievable to me that a game that's 22 years old is still better. And I don't care what all of you listening right now say. Anyone that's like, it slows down when you're 4 players in the ladder matches, and I'm like, fucking right, it does. And it's so much fun that I don't even care that it slows down. This game is legendary. Like, oh my God, I could, like, it's funny. You said you were 12 when this came out. Is that what you said? You were 12? See, that makes me feel old as shit, because I was 17. but still though, like, I get it. Like, I've told the stories countless times. My friends and I, we would backyard wrestle all weekend during the day and film it, and then go back to our houses and watch the backyard wrestling videos, and then just play No Mercy and just play it and just play it. And we'd run our own federation and keep track of our own titles. And the thing about WWF No Mercy, I think that makes it so special, is not only is it the most advanced of that, like, each of, like, that, those 4 wrestling games are almost like that evolution poster, like, from World Tour up to No Mercy. And No Mercy is obviously the best of the 4, but it's also like, it's the best wrestling game from arguably the best era of professional wrestling at a time when so many of us were in that 12 to 18-year-old junior high to high school age. And it's just like, it's just the perfect formula that'll probably never be recreated again. You know what I mean?
That's when when I was playing the other day, I was doing a Royal Rumble, and just the surprise of who's coming next. Like, I've obviously played this game a ton. There's no surprises, but you are reminded, like, oh yeah, this is a weird time for WWE where there's like Big Boss Man and Steve Austin, and like The Rock is on the cover, and like Triple H. This is such a snapshot of, just, to me, just reminds me of being a kid. You know, everything in life was great. And you're right, like the era, the roster, I think one of the reasons why I think the legacy of these games is so good is the controls are just perfect. You could not create a better setup for the controls, the finishers, the taunts. It is simple, but it's not super simple. Like those old PlayStation games. Do you remember WWF Warzone?
Oh God, yes.
Like it was like a 12 key to a proper finisher, and that's kind of why you want to play these games, right? You want to give stunners, rock bottoms, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's so simple. Like, it's funny the muscle memory that picks up when you don't play this game for a long time. You still know when your spirit bar is flashing red, like, oh, I just got to taunt him once, and then I got him, and the match is over. Like, it's set up that you can play for 8 hours in a row, or you can just play for 20 minutes, and the fun level doesn't dip. That's my favorite part about this game.
Yeah, I love that. Like, it's because, man, you brought fucking Warzone. Fuck me. I remember when that game came out, and like I was so stoked just because it was next gen wrestling, and like Stone Cold was in it, and Brett, and you know like, and like it was rad until I played WCW NWO World Tour, and then I was like, oh, never mind, this fucking sucks. Like this is so much better. Yes. And I think it's like I think everyone looks at WCW NWO Revenge with such high regard, not only because it plays well and it looks great, but like that was WCW at its peak. Like Goldberg, the NWO, the Wolfpack, Ravens Flock, all that. And this was WWE, WWF, whatever, at its peak. But you're right. It's not just that the roster is so stacked. It's just, there are a few games today where I'm like, they found a way to make a control scheme that is so simple to learn. I don't want to say it's difficult to master, because you can master it. But like, if I know how to play this and you don't, I'll massacre you. But if we both know how to play it at a semi-high level, you can pick any wrestler in the game versus any wrestler in the game and just have a clinic. And it's so much of it to me is like the controls are perfect, but that attitude bar, like to me, this is when they really locked it in, because it fuck me, it feels so, if you've never played this game, you don't have like a health bar on the screen or anything. You literally just have this like momentum bar called your attitude meter. And when you're getting your ass kicked, it goes down to like a darker and darker shade of blue, and it beats really slow. But then when you're winning, it starts picking up really fast, and it gets to red, and it's flashing really quick. And then that's how you activate your special meter. You can do your special and stuff like that. But like when you're winning and then someone turns it around on you, it feels so fucking cheap how fast that meter switches and goes back and forth. But at the same time, like it's almost undescribable how perfectly it mimics professional wrestling. Like that's what I was just
gonna say. Yeah, it feels exactly like you're watching a match. Would you feel like it was scripted out in front of you? Like you get your special, and then if someone can actually reverse your special, you're like, oh my god, what is absolutely happening? And it's so funny you mentioned too, when two people are playing and they know how to play it, it becomes like this Dave Meltzer 8-star match. Yeah. Because there's counters. My buddy and I always joke about, once we figured out how to do the low blows, once you get knocked down and you hold the right bumper, it hit, like we would both get knocked down and we would crouch waiting for the other guy to come to us. Yeah. Like we built all these, there's storylines that happen within a match. And again, it seems like we're talking about some newfound AI that they have in these next gen. Like, no, this was on N64. This was on a cartridge game that had so much depth to what seemingly like a flat story. so much effort you could tell went into these types of games.
Yeah, it's insane. And it's like you said, like, dude, you could pick this game. If you've never played it, you could pick this game up and in 15 minutes, you've learned the basic controls and you can play and you can have a good time. But like all of you that listen to the show with any regularity know that like, I adore, like I really look up to high-end fighting game players, but I can't be one of you. I'm not good.
Yeah.
I don't get it. This is as close to like high-end fighting game as I can get. And Mark's right. The fucking strategy that can go into this game and working your meter. And I love the fact that like you can be getting just annihilated by your opponent and your attitude meter is down to practically nothing, and you know that all it takes is one reversal or one right place low blow and then run away a couple of taunts, get a couple of moves in, and the game, it's like the game just knows, oh, okay, like this is a wrestling term for you wrestling fans, but like, oh, the baby face is in its comeback right now, trigger the attitude and bring it back up for them and stuff like that. And you never feel out of a match, which just keeps you so involved with it. And it's just, like, and then like you said, dude, not only that, but just B is punch, A is grapple, and you can do a light grapple or a hard grapple. Once you're in the grapple, pick a direction, hit the button, and you'll do a move. Like, it's so simple and elegant. Elegant is the word for the controls of this game. It's just, and I don't know what it is. Like, I've played so many wrestling games. I played all the SmackDown games. I play a lot of the WWE games. I play Fire Pro Wrestling, which I fucking love Fire Pro Wrestling.
Oh, really? Okay.
But like, I don't know if any of them stack up to this. And this is my least favorite controller ever. I hate the Nintendo 64 controller. But these guys just cracked the code and made it work so perfectly. And we haven't even gotten into the roster or the modes or anything. Oh, yeah. But that's all window dressing. Like, to me, all that is great. But if your game plays like shit, none of it matters.
Yeah, you know? And it's funny you mentioned the controller. To me, just always made me laugh. Picking the N64 for the first time, excuse me. Well, there's 3 handles, and like, I don't know, I have 2 hands. This just made it simple. Like, no, just hold it like a normal controller. Don't worry about that thing down the middle. This is like an old school classic. Here's your D-pad. Here's your C, up, down, all those. Like, a simple way of moving your left hand slightly over to the left, I guess, move it over, was just a stroke of brilliance. And, you know, you can still use the joystick, that's for taunting and everything, but yeah, it's handled so well and it's simple. Yeah. And that's I think what I like the most about it. And one thing too, you mentioned how like going back and forth with strategy, man, the first time my buddy Dave did my finisher to me, that was one of the most like jarring experiences of my adolescence. When I saw The Rock give a Stone Cold Stunner, I'm like, what in the hell is happening right now? Little things like that I still do when I fire up. I always love seeing big guys do little guys finishers and kind of vice versa. Yeah. But just small little things like that. No 2 matches feel the same. No. Being able to steal your opponent's taunt too. Oh my God. We used to do that so much. And you like when you were the one getting your ass kicked and then like, listen, wrestling fans that are listening to this are going to just shit all over me for this, but like, I'm a huge Scotty 2 Hottie Mark. I don't even care. Make fun of me. I don't give a shit. If you don't know who Scotty 2 Hottie is, I'm begging you, just YouTube Scotty 2 Hottie Worm and you'll see why I love the man so much. And like, he was one of my go-tos in this game and he does the worm, the dance move. And my friends, and like, there's nothing more infuriating than when I was getting my ass kicked by someone who's playing as like fucking The Undertaker or something. And then they would do the worm and I would get so mad. But it was just, that was part of the genius. Oh my God. Yeah. I have such a smile on my face right now. I fucking, oh my God, I love this game. It's so much fun, man. So much fun. Now, I wanted to ask you, I want to go with the roster before we get into the modes and stuff. Everyone that knows wrestling from this era knows that, like, I will listen to an argument that the Ruthless Aggression era of the early 2000s was a better wrestling era than Attitude as far as the in-ring wrestling goes. But, like, as someone that was in high school during the Monday Night Wars and the Attitude era and everything, this will always be the peak of professional wrestling to me. So I'm just curious, like, this is my favorite roster in a game ever, outside of like some of the more modern WWE games where they took all the Hall of Famers and put them in with everybody and stuff like that. For like a basic roster, this is my favorite. I'm just curious because you're a little bit younger than me. Is this this the era for you, or is it Ruthless Aggression, or is it something else? No, it's this and maybe a little bit after. So was WCW still kicking during this era? I think
Yeah, I think they
I
folded
think
right
so.
around now. Like, I think it was like
Yeah.
2001 they fold, I think.
So I like this era, speaking of this game, just because you have like some of the better WCW wrestlers that are in this game, right? You have like your Chris Jerichos, you have your Chris Benoits, you have kind of those types of people. You don't quite have the Goldbergs, the Nashes of those guys yet. So around, it's kind of like a 3 or 4 year window when I thought wrestling was at its peak for me, man. That's when you had like, I don't know, we don't need to talk about Shawn Michaels joining the NWO now, but you had stuff like The Undertaker would wrestle Hulk Hogan at SummerSlam, and it wasn't the biggest match on the card.
Yeah,
So
insane.
it was this weird kind of, a lot of the WCW guys hadn't jumped ship yet, but this roster, though, it's like there's really not a lot of fat on it. I feel like everyone top to bottom, I can recall a plot or a storyline they had going around this time.
Yeah.
And it was kind of before, I know the internet was a thing, but it wasn't what it is now. So you were still genuinely surprised when guys showed up. Like, I remember vividly the day that the Radicals showed up on Monday Night Raw.
Oh, God.
Because it was a surprise, right? Like, we kind of knew Jericho was coming. I think that was maybe either before or after that. But seeing, like, those guys sit the front row, like, they're not supposed to be there. So the shock of all of that and knowing they're just going to be regular parts of the show moving forward, it's so hard to top.
That's the thing is, like, yeah, when you look at that, like, to me, and it's so funny that I say this because, like, I don't care about, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but, like, I don't care about the Big Show. But, like, it's weird that the Big Show's not, like, he's really the one wrestler that seems missing. And, like, we'll get into it because in the career mode, they obviously are missing the Big Show from like the WWF title angle and stuff like that. But when you go to that character select screen and it's like these grids of 9 wrestlers and it's just like that first page, obviously there's like The Rock and Stone Cold and Triple H and The Undertaker and Kane and Mankind and blah, 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 blah. Then you flip to like page 2 and it's like, oh yeah, here's Chris Jericho and Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko. And then you flip to like the third page and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, here's the Hardys and Edge and Christian and the Dudley Boys and here's the Big Boss Man and the Hollies and X-Pac and DX is there. And it just goes and goes and goes. And you're right. Like there's just so little fat. Like I guess maybe you could argue, stuff like JR and and like that shit, but like they have to put that kind of stuff in,
of course,
for shits and giggles. But it's insane to me. Oh my God. And we haven't even talked about the creator wrestler, which was insane in this fucking game. But the roster alone carries it for so long. And because I have so many memories and I have so many, not only do I have so many favorite wrestlers from this era, but this game did such a phenomenal job of like capturing their essences without changing the controls for each one. Like I'm a big old school Kane fan. Like he kind of, God knows what they fucking did with that poor man. But like early Kane was fucking sick. And he was one of my go-tos in this game, but he felt kind of big and kind of slow. But then I also love playing as Scotty 2 Hotty, and I'm a big Jeff Hardy fan, and I love Kurt Angle and Chris Jericho. And they don't even feel like they feel faster even though they're not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, totally.
You're playing
totally. And
what's that?
I don't know if that's just a placebo effect because they might not be, but you're right. You always felt like there's a bit of a drag when you had one of the heavier hitters, I guess.
Yeah. And like again, I'm a big Kane fan, and it was like I knew when I could do the Kane like throat thrust, and I knew when I could throw that big boot, but then he could also go to the top rope and do his diving clothesline where he'd roll through everybody, and you do the taunt where he just fixes his glove and like cracks his neck a little bit and stuff like. It all just felt so good. Like, oh, I mean, I know that this wasn't the first game to do it, but like The Rock, and he actually takes off the elbow pad and does does that. And Scotty 2 Hotty had the diving 2-handed like bulldog to like lead into the worm, and Rikishi had the stink face, and Badass Billy Gunn would do the taunt where he would moon you and they'd put the pixelated like blur out of his ass. Like the detail they had for every wrestler in this game. It was just, I feel like to this, like I'm playing WWE 2K22, like I said, and it's great, but I'm like, it doesn't feel like it has as much attention to detail as this game did. Like they all feel perfect. Yeah,
this game clearly they put a lot of effort into all these games because they understood, right? They knew their audience. Yeah. And they knew that they were probably going to buy it regardless, but you want to make this experience kind of last, like there's a bit of a tangent, but I feel like there's almost just less stakes with stuff now because stuff comes and goes so fast.
Yeah.
Like you remember when you have to save up money to buy an album, and that album would have to last you for like 3 to 4 months, and that was all you and your friends talked about?
Yeah.
Now we all have streaming services, and if an album stinks, you listen to it once, and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like these games, well, we're talking about No Mercy 22 years later, so clearly they did something right. And I just, not that they don't put effort into games anymore, it just feels like this was just a perfect era for video games. There's competitive, there's so many consoles going around, and just so much work went into even the smallest of details.
And I think part of it too is like, I mean, we've had this discussion on the show a few times, like sports games, and now wrestling falls into this category. Unfortunately, they've all become annualized money grabs, right? And it's like, and listen, I understand business. I get why. I'm sure these games are worth a fortune to WWE and all the wrestlers in it, much like Madden. You know, everyone keeps saying Madden, like EA should just take a year off and just fix Madden. But it's like, I can't imagine what that contract is worth. Like they can't, business wise, I get it. I wish they would too, but I get it. Whereas like you said, back then, like we got these 4 games in the span of the Nintendo 64, which was, I don't know, probably one every 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. Like it's not quite annualized, but they had to make each one special. It wasn't WWE 12, 13, 14, 15, where they just spit shined the old game. This one was one where they took what they had with World Tour, which, you know what? I don't think WCW NWO World Tour gets enough credit. No one talks about that game. Everyone brings up Revenge, but like the reason we have those games is because of World Tour.
The first one through the door is always the bloodiest, right? They never get the credit they deserve. It's always the one that comes second or third.
Yeah. And it just feels like they polished and polished and polished. And this was finally the one, like, again, we're going to get into all the different match types and stuff in a second, but you know what blew my mind about this? This is, you can do the fucking 3D in this game. And it was just like, what? Like, how did you get this into this? And oh my God. The attention to detail is just second to none. Even like the entrances are awesome. And the music was actually surprisingly good. Not great, but good.
It's when you consider it's not the most important part of the game, it's like, but you're right. Like the small details like that go a long, long way to making the experience of this game still hold up.
I feel like they took this cartridge and they stopped like, I don't know a lot about anything, much less technology. I have no idea how much room there is on a Nintendo 64 cartridge, but I feel like they packed this thing to the gills. Like they were like, we have no space left in this game for anything.
You absolutely got your money's worth.
Absolutely.
I don't even recall how much new video games cost 22 years ago, but no one can be accused of skipping over anything during the production of this game.
No, although I'd be remiss if I didn't point out, because I know if I don't say it, people are going to yell at me for it. It did have, I don't know if you had it, but like when I bought it day one, I got one of the cartridges that kept wiping out your progress.
Ooh.
And that was a glitch with some of the early cartridges, and they had to be like sent back to get new ones.
Oh, jeez.
And I was one of those kids. So, and listen, I still love this game. It's still going to get an incredibly high score from me. But I was like, if I don't bring this up, someone's going to be like, I hate that game because I bought it and I got fucked over and got a That happened to me too. So I understand.
So,
it's frustrating.
Can I just ask, like, what I know the internet was a thing, but did you just take it back to like Zellers and say it keeps wiping out my, like, what was the process of that?
I don't remember because my friend had one too and he ended up dealing with it for us. But
okay.
I want to say, I want to say it was, you had to go online and you had to go to THQ.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, here it is right here. The company eventually instituted a recall program where those affected were able to exchange their copy for a fixed one. So, yeah, I remember it getting fixed pretty quickly, but it was like, I didn't even care. It pissed me off, but I liked the game so much and we were mostly playing multiplayer. So it didn't, like, I didn't care about losing my career progress. Although once I actually, and that's a great segue into the career, because once I actually got a working copy and sat down and started playing with the single player mode, I still think that this game has one of the, like, as much as I love the previous 3 entries in the wrestling games from THQ, the single player, like, career modes at best were okay.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, WCW, NWO didn't really, the World Tour barely even had one. Revenge was just the classic ladder. WrestleMania 2000 tried, like, it had the calendar and stuff, but it was kind of lame. This was the one where you could pick each title and you could go through all these different branches and all these different storylines. And not only was that so, but like your championships would then stay on whoever you'd finished it with, and then you could defend them in the other. Oh my God, Mark. Oh.
Yeah, no, that was great. And you're right. The story mode, like adding even things like I know Revenge had it, but having like actual people run interference during your matches during the career mode, like they did such a good job at building, and I'm sure there's probably only 3 or 4 scenarios that just rotate over and over and over, but it kind of felt like wrestling at the time. I think that's why we play, I don't know, I play Madden because I like to think that I'm a GM and I like to make my things as close to real as possible, but small things like that, like in my story mode that I was just playing the other day, I had Triple H run interference in one of my matches, and it's goofy how it kind of happens, right? He sticks in the ring for 30 seconds and then just hangs outside for the rest of the match.
Yeah, they just stand there and watch. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. Like it was more than just one and done. Like seeing Scotty 2 Hotty show up with the Intercontinental title in just a regular match with your buddies was so cool. It's something you wish you would see on Monday Night Raw, but this was the next best thing.
Yeah. And like the only, like, I haven't played this game in a long time. Like I haven't played it in, gosh, probably 15 years. So a lot of this, like I can't sit here and pretend to recall all the storylines because I can't. Mm-hmm. But the one that always stands out to me is the world title, like the WWF Championship. Yeah. And like, this is where I was talking about the to me, well, I guess, so the 2 people that are kind of missing from the roster that had debuted by this point were the Big Show and Taz. And I don't think Taz was in it. I think he was the other one that was missing, which, you know, again, if those are the 2 you're missing, it's not the end of the world. But the WWF Championship storyline was based off the storyline leading up to the main event of WrestleMania 2000, where it was Triple H was, you know, in charge, and they wanted to bring Mick Foley back and put him in the main, and it was a 4-way and blah, 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 blah. But the Big Show was part of that in real life, and they didn't have him. And I was a little surprised that they replaced him with Stevie Richards. Like I like Stevie Richards, but I actually think Right to Censor Stevie Richards was a phenomenal heel. I love that gimmick, but it just seemed like such an odd choice that was the guy that they were like, let's make him the big bad 4th member of this main event. But I like the fact that, like, they would put you into the Royal Rumble, and if you lost the Royal Rumble early, you got one story. If you lost it late, you got a story. If you won it, you got a story. Like, I know there were the odd match where you had to win or you had to, you know, try again, but I love that, like, not only were most matches you had a win or lose option, but he would even show you the branching, like the branching storylines, so that when you finished it, you could hop in with somebody else and play a whole different storyline and see it. Yeah. I know that, like, by today's standards, it might feel very basic and boring, but, like, I thought it was mind blowing back then. Seeing them in the ring cutting promos and everything was like the sickest shit in the world, man.
We've gotten, like, greedy with how good we have. There's a lot of things wrong with the world right now. There's also a lot of things that we just kind of take for granted. And you're right, just having the multiple, like, the choose your own adventure style for a wrestling video game was so revolutionary and really set the tone. Like, I haven't played any of the new, I think the last WWE game I probably played was 17. It's been a long, long time, but you really feel like they're still doing things that was started 25 years ago.
Totally. And like, and then I'll be honest with you all, like, this is my, like, belt. This isn't going to matter to 90% of our listeners, but as far as belt designs go, the Attitude Era World Championship, not the Winged Eagle, but the Attitude Era one, is my second favorite belt ever after the old school white strap Intercontinental Championship belt, which will always be my favorite championship.
We have the same rankings of belts, man. Like, I know you're right. Everyone loves the Winged Eagle. I think it's just because everyone loves Bret Hart, and that's kind of what they associate that belt with.
That son of a bitch. No, go ahead.
I'm with you on that one too. Don't worry. But, like, this was also the era, they're not on the games, but when they were doing, like, do you remember The Rock had his own? Did The Rock have his own belt? I know Austin had his own custom one for a while.
Yeah, The Rock had that Brahma Bull belt or whatever.
Yeah, but just this classic one, the classic circle that actually had the globe on it, like, just a great snapshot of what wrestling was like in the year 2000.
And still the greatest tag team championship belts of all time, with the bright red world written in the middle.
Oh, yes.
And I think the European title is awesome. And the hardcore title was stupid, but we all loved it back in the day.
Of course.
And they even had the light heavyweight title in it. They could have easily skipped the European title, the light heavyweight title. And let's be honest, the women's title, I'm not trying to be sexist, but women's wrestling in this era was not what it is today. It was not good back then.
I don't even know if you could even call it wrestling, to be honest.
No,
wasn't the women's title handed out over, like, bra and panties matches?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like Becky Lynch and Charlotte main
No.
main eventing
No,
WrestleMania.
it was fucking, when I think of the women's title from this era, I just think of Stephanie McMahon carrying it around all the time.
Yeah,
like
that's fair.
fucking
That's fair.
stupid. But
That's fair.
so they easily could have skipped those 3 belts and just gone with the world title, intercontinental title, tag team titles, and the hardcore title, which were by far the 4 biggest belts back then. But they got them all in and wrote out storylines. I don't know if they wrote out storylines. They took storylines, but they had storylines for all of them. And you could pick anyone you wanted to go and win these belts and stuff like that. And it was just, again, if all it had was its single player or its multiplayer, I would love it. Because there was enough meat on the bone with either mode, and it had both.
And just one last thing on the light heavyweight championship. I remember the first time seeing that on TV, and I was just blown away. Like, why don't they use this more? I think I saw Gilbert win it, and then it wasn't on TV for another year and a half. Heavily underused title belt that they should have used more. I'm
going to date myself, but I remember watching Taka Michinoku beat Brian Christopher for that light heavyweight championship in the final of a tournament. I don't remember what pay-per-view was on. I want to say Survivor Series. But I remember watching that, and I loved Taka Michinoku. And I was just like, wow, I want to see more of this. That was always my favorite thing about WCW was the Cruiserweight division. And I wanted WWF to adapt one so bad. And they would try and then just give up. And try and then just give up. But I digress. It doesn't matter. So I'm trying to think. Like, I think we basically covered everything from the single player. And then, because once you'd play through the story or the different modes, you would earn money you could spend at the SmackDown Mall.
Yes.
Which is another great gimmick. And you could buy other wrestlers, or you could buy costumes or weapons. Oh my God, this game has sick weapons. Oh man. My God.
The first time I walked over to the railing and pulled something like Revenge was the first time I was introduced to that, right? Like Revenge, they'd have, I think, the stop sign you could pull over.
Yeah.
Like the bats, they had a chair.
Yeah.
But again, it was just so simple. You didn't have to punch in some long 10-digit code. You walked over and pressed one button. Sometimes you got something. Sometimes you just shrugged and had to go to the other side of the ring to get something.
Yeah.
That, and then when you'd have a weapon and you'd crack someone open and you'd see the pixelated hand go up and look for blood. Like, just that whole process was so much fun. And we just got so much of the small things right, that like Warzone wasn't a great game, but Attitude was a really not a good game.
No, it wasn't.
This just picked up all those things and said, no, let's just keep it simple. This is all people want.
You know what when I think of the weapons in this game, I would, you know how like some wrestlers have I feel like the chairman of a company has been done half a dozen times, where a wrestler is known for using a chair, and like Triple H is known for using a sledgehammer, and Sting with the bat and stuff like that. When we would play this game as kids, I was the bell guy, because I loved that it would make the bing every time you hit someone with that bell. And I would just dig for weapons. And if it wasn't the bell, I'd be like, I don't want this. And just like dig and be like, I don't want it, till I got that ring bell. And then it was just like, I was like, you'll pry this fucking bell from my cold dead hands. And I would run around that ring and just bing, bing, bing. And it was the greatest. Oh my God. The weapons in this game were so good. And you could fight into the back, which I actually hate in a lot of wrestling games, because I feel like it just feels like a very tacked on, stupid gimmick. But like this game's from the 24/7 hardcore title era, where these matches were so much fun. Fighting into the back and fighting into like the bar and stuff like that was like the funnest thing in the world.
Yeah, because we hadn't seen it up until this, and like we said it earlier, but this did such a good job of just replicating what was on TV at the time, right? Everyone thinks they're the best wrestling booker, right? They think they could book any company top to bottom. This just gave you a chance to make tweaks to the stuff we were seeing from week to week. The guy at THQ that just added the bell sound deserves a I hope he's still running THQ. I hope he's still working there, because there are just the little things like that.
Yeah. It
would have been great without the noise, but just the little additions like that. There's so many from start to finish in this game. Like it's just chock full of so much fun stuff.
Yeah. Oh my God. Some of the hard, like I listen, I love ECW as much as every other wrestling fan from that era, but like I can live without I like AEW now, but I can live without the arena fights and stuff like that. Like I feel like it's been done. But like this era, hardcore matches were just normal. Fights would go to the back and stuff all the time. And some of our favorite matches, because not only you'd fight up the ramp, you'd fight through the ramp, like the entranceway, and then you'd be in that hallway, and then you could filter one through a door, and you could go into like the dressing room or into like the bar that was in the fucking arena for some reason and stuff like that. And then you could fight in those, and you'd have these hardcore matches. One of my favorite memories ever was we had a triple threat. Oh my God, because we'll get into the different match styles because you could combine and mix around the rules and do all these crazy things. We did a triple threat, anything like any Falls Count Anywhere Iron Man match. And it was Angle, Benoit, Jericho. And it was for an hour. And we went right down to the wire, me and my two friends, and we fought into the back, and we were all over the place, and we were like sprinting across that hallway in the back, trying to break up pins and submissions and stuff like that. And it just never got old. Like, and it was just incredible that like, if it wasn't for the graphic style, which I still think looks cool because they look blocky, but they look kind of cool blocky, like a cartoon kind of blocky.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that art style, which is so obviously the Nintendo 64, like I would swear that this was like a GameCube PS2 game. With the way it ran and the amount you could do with it. Like, it's incredible that you were able to do all this on the Nintendo 64. Even with that slowdown, which I'll tell you, I wanted to ask you this. I never found the slowdown bad except for four-player ladder matches was the only time I ever found that it slowed down.
Yeah, I think it's... I just noticed it. I haven't noticed it so much in this. I played GoldenEye with a buddy a few weeks ago, and that's when I really noticed it.
Yeah.
But also the fact that there's not... I don't know. There's good and bad. There's no load times with it. So if it lags a little bit when you're playing with buddies, at least you don't have to sit through a 2-minute load screen.
Sure.
So yeah, it's there, but it certainly doesn't. I don't avoid this game because of the lag if I'm playing with buddies. You know, like it's there, but it certainly doesn't take away from anything.
No, not at all. And dude, like obviously the big addition match wise to this game was the ladder match, which is just for it to be called No Mercy. And to have the Hardys and the Dudleys and Edge and Christian. And if you don't know, the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian kind of put the ladder match back on the map back at No Mercy in 1999. Yep. Like one of the greatest. Oh my God, I love that match. So like it was just the perfect fit. But like the ladder match, dude, it almost pisses me off that there are more modern wrestling games where the ladder match plays worse than it does in this. You can't get the ladder lined up or you can't climb it properly or fucking whatever. And it just worked so well in this game. It was easy to use as a weapon. It was easy to set up. You climbed it slow and then you got to the top and it gave your opponents an adequate chance to knock you down and you could jump off of it. Even when it was slowing down in 4-player, we got so into it because we were like, it's just adding drama to the match. Yes. You know, I know it wasn't intended, but it almost made it more suspenseful.
No, and you're right. It's the way that it just seems so simple. Like simple, I hope people don't think it's an insult, but this game is so simple yet, but that's what makes it so good, right?
Totally.
Small things like you mentioned, lining up the ladder in some of the modern games is way more frustrating than it should be, right? Like
it's not even fun. It just pisses me off.
Man. It's like trying to land a helicopter sometimes in Grand Theft Auto. You're like, I just want to play the game, man. I don't want to struggle with these angles and physics and trying to match the thing up. Just let me climb the stinking ladder. And I'll do it. And yeah, this is peak a lot of stuff for wrestling video games, but really the ladder match, that and the special guest ref were my two favorite match types.
Special guest referee was like an invite to punch your friend in the nose. Because that mode, I guarantee you there are friendships out there that no longer exist because of the special guest referee mode in this game. What a great idea to include that in this. Oh my God.
You could fast count a buddy, you could slow count a buddy. Yeah, you could knock a buddy out. Like if you had a group of 3 playing, everyone could still be involved. And like, do they still have special guest referee matches? I feel like I still watch wrestling. I'm not as dialed in as I was even 4 or 5 years ago, but is that still a match that comes up from time to time?
I mean, yeah, I think on occasion, but nothing like it used to. Like,
yeah.
When I think of special guest referees, my mind instantly goes to Vince McMahon trying to fuck Stone Cold Steve Austin over.
Yep.
And that's exactly what you can do in this game. And it's so much fun. It is like, oh my God. If you've, I have such a smile on my face right now. I have so many memories. Like, cause we used to run like our own federation and we had all our belts and we kept track of who had what and stuff like that. And when you got a chance to guest referee and like, as they're making their entrances, you're sitting there with your friends and you're like, yo, like, I'm not going to fuck either of you over. I'm here. We're going to call it down the middle. And then, like anyone that didn't fuck someone over as the guest referee has no sense of fun whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
what's the point? You have to fuck somebody over. Oh my God.
It just added an element of chaos to a match.
Oh,
right. Like you could be dominating and then, you get fast counted or slow counted. And that set up a match with your buddy when the other person ends up being the special guest referee. Like a small element, like it was just so well done.
And you look at like modern games and like this game came out before the elimination chamber ever existed. So like you don't have the elimination chamber, you don't have Hell in a Cell. I mean, you don't have TLC matches. I guess you have like the announce table and ladders and chairs, but you don't have like an official like TLC match. Money in the Bank didn't exist back then. So like you're missing some of those big gimmicks that are so well known today, but it didn't even end. You only had 4 players. You got to remember that. Like wrestling games now, it's like 6 to 8 people on the screen. Like we had 4. So at best you could have like a tag team match, or you could have a triple threat with a guest referee, or you could have a fatal 4-way. And it didn't matter because like you said, just like you could have a special guest referee. You can make it first blood. You can make it falls count anywhere. Iron Man, submissions only. The amount of options you had to customize and mix and match to make up these different matches was just, I don't know what it is about. Like I hate saying that new games aren't as good as old ones, because then I feel like I'm just Grandpa Simpson under the lemon tree being like, you kids don't understand today. And like, listen, there are some great wrestling games coming out. Sure there are, but like, God, there's just something about the simplicity of this game combined with the mix and match, combined with the roster, combined with the attention to detail. It was just perfect in every sense. It was, and multiplayer. I don't care what anyone says. This is still my absolute favorite multiplayer experiences of all time, is playing this game with my friends.
Did you and buddies, when you were going for the tag titles, ever just spam knock the guy out and then your buddy just gets him counted out via time? You throw the opponent out of the ring and then your buddy would just beat the snot out of him outside the ring. It's the easiest way to win tag titles. Then it would take you about 20 minutes.
Yes.
But you would just spam, and just even stuff like Royal Rumble, if you're one of the last people thrown out, well, you can pull your buddies out of the ring and screw them over, right? Just so many ways like that.
Yeah.
No two matches play the same.
Now I will say, like, I mean, it's not perfect. Like, I love this game, but if I am gonna sit here and be that guy and just nitpick a couple of little things, I will say the Royal Rumble mode in it bugs me just a little bit. It's just, I don't like, some of the more modern games have introduced these mini games where you go to eliminate someone and you need to, mash buttons or put in codes or use a special to eliminate somebody or whatever. And I don't know if any game has ever perfectly encapsulated the Royal Rumble. Actually, like WWF Royal Rumble on like the Super Nintendo did a great job of the Royal Rumble. But like, there are times in this game where you get completely fucked. You get hit like one time by like a basic punch and you stumble backwards and do the big flip over the top rope and eliminate. And then other times you can't eliminate someone to save your goddamn life.
Like you'll enter the ring, you'll get popped once, and then that's it. And then the other time the guy's spirit meter will be in danger, and for whatever reason you can't knock him over that ring. You'll strong grapple, you'll whip him as hard as you can. I guess all games can't be perfect, but you're right. It's the one thing that it took them a long time to figure out with wrestling games. That's my favorite like wrestling event is the Royal Rumble, and that's because it's just so special, right? Like, it's something about seeing all those people in the ring at the same time. But you're right, the eliminations, I don't know what you could possibly do. It's not perfect, but it adds an element of like strategy towards it, right? Like sometimes you'll just drag a guy around for hours just to keep him upright, and then he'll end up knocking you out with a low spirit bar. Like you kind of get punished sometimes for being too cheeky.
It's just funny because like I've told this story before, but like, so my first ever job was bagging groceries at the IGA in Cold Lake, and I got my first paycheck and it was $90. And I went and I spent that $90 on a green Nintendo 64 controller, and that controller was all mine. And I brought it home, and I was playing WWF No Mercy, and I remember getting eliminated in the Royal Rumble during the career mode by like a cheap thing, and I whipped that controller, and it shattered. And within like a week of buying it, I ruined it. And it taught me a lesson. It taught me the value of $1. But I'll never forgive this game's Royal Rumble mode because I'll remember that. And it's like, for all the things, for all the praise I heap on this game, and there's a ton of it, the Royal Rumble kind of irritates me. And normally, I agree with you, dude. I think most wrestling fans, you have to love the Royal Rumble. Like, even if you're not into the product at the time, the Royal Rumble is still the Royal Rumble. And I can't remember if this game does it, but one of my things about the Royal Rumble mode in most wrestling games these days is if my friends and I are playing it, you're not done when you get eliminated. You can control whoever comes out next. And I can't remember if you could do that in this one, but I think you could. I think you can. In story mode, you can't.
No. You're obviously stuck with the superstar you picked. But yeah, and that's the other thing too of the Russian roulette of like, okay, I know I'm going to be the next person. Please be someone that I want it to be.
Yes.
Please don't give me, I can't even think of a bad superstar off the top, but don't give me D'Lo Brown. Like, you got to give me Triple H or something, right? All due respect to D'Lo Brown.
No, I love D'Lo Brown, but I get it. Yeah.
It was always that gamble of like, oh crap.
But
that's
always my favorite. Like, if you don't know what the Royal Rumble is, I mean, like in 10 seconds or less, two guys start in the ring, and then every 2 minutes, another wrestler runs down to the ring, and when you get thrown over the top rope and you hit the floor, you're eliminated, and there's 30 wrestlers enter, and the last one in the ring wins. That's the very quick gist of it. And so I agree. Like, I love that. And that's not even just No Mercy. That's just wrestling video games. When you're playing with your friends and you're doing a Royal Rumble and you get eliminated, and then that little clock shows up counting down to 0, and you know you're next. Like, when you're watching a real Royal Rumble, it's so exciting every time because you want to know who's next. But when you have to control who's coming out next, it is so tense. And then oh my God. And then it would hit like 0. And then, like, again, all due respect, but like fucking Crash Holly comes out, rest in peace. Yeah. And you're like, God damn it. But then like the Undertaker comes out and you're like, fuck yeah. Like, let's go. Oh yeah. By the way, this game has Biker Taker, and unpopular opinion, I actually like Biker Taker.
It was important at the time. I think it's aged well in the fact that the Undertaker still went on to have like a nice long run after that.
Yeah.
At the time, I know everyone hates it. Like, it is a trip to think about the fact that the Undertaker had a theme by Limp Bizkit and rode motorcycles for like 2 years. Like, that just seems so out of character.
Yeah.
But it's a chapter in like one of the most iconic books in professional wrestling history.
Totally. Plus, it introduced The Last Ride, and I fucking love me some Last Ride.
Oh,
baby.
buddy.
I mean, I love the Tombstone too, but I love The Last Ride.
Some of those guys he would have hanging up there for what felt like hours.
Yeah.
And just would viciously bash them through. I remember Raw came to Edmonton during that era. Do you remember when he made the person drink his tobacco spit?
Yes. Wasn't that Tommy Dreamer that he made drink it?
It was. And I believe there was also a correct me if someone listening knows, I think there was also a PWA connection as well during that as well.
Gross.
But it was just such the Undertaker has since spoke how that was just an important part of his career to be able to do something, just have him talk more and do all that kind of stuff. Cause that was also coming off like the super satanic era of the Undertaker.
Yeah. The Ministry of Darkness and everything.
Yeah. Like strapping, I think he strapped multiple people to the cross.
Yeah, he like crucified people. And it was like, you can't do that. But back then they could, yeah. No, I love that. I remember I listened to a podcast with Kurt Angle once where he said the worst finisher he ever took in his career was The Last Ride.
Yeah, I could see that, man. It was not soft. There's no soft landings in that whatsoever.
No, and he's like, the Undertaker is 7 feet tall on his own. And then he lists you like another foot in the air. So you're like 8 feet in the air, and then you don't know when he's going to be like, all right, I'm ready now. And then just a half a second later, you took the hardest bump of your career. And it just, oh my God. On that note too, I just wanted to say, shout out to Kurt Angle. He's so good in this game. I fucking, I mean, like, okay, so I feel like, gosh, I mean, we've talked about the modes, we've talked about the controls, we've talked about the wrestlers, we've talked about the music. I just wanted to ask you, is there 2 or 3 wrestlers that you actually really liked playing as in this game? Like, did you have mains, I guess, as they say these days?
Yeah, and it's not like a cool, like a hipster answer, but like, I love The Rock. To this day, he's my favorite wrestler of all time. Like, being a kid when The Rock kind of comes of age, like, I remember Rocky Maivia making his debut.
Me too.
And then like the Die Rocky Die chant.
Yeah.
Like, what? This poor guy, he's just trying to perform. So The Rock will always have a special place in my heart. That one's up there. I really liked Chris Jericho. That's probably also because he was always my revenge go-to. I always loved that.
Yeah.
The Rock, Jericho. I guess again, not like a hipster answer as well, but like Triple H was also very, very fun to play with as well. It always comes down to how good the finisher was. Yeah. I hated submission finishers, so I always tried to avoid those because if you're in, like you mentioned, a match type that wasn't a pinfall, a submission or finisher is kind of tricky. So I always tried to avoid characters that had those.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because like Chris Jericho is my favorite wrestler of all time, or top 2 or 3 anyways. And so he was one of my mains in this game for sure. I loved Scotty 2 Hotty because I'm a sucker. Yeah. I love Jeff Hardy because I'm a big Jeff Hardy mark. But I would always play as Kane. Kane was my go-to. Kane was my guy. Yeah. I love vintage Kane, man. And you know what? He was so over in this era. Like, it drives me crazy that he had that world title for one day. I'm like, how did he never? Oh, my God. And then, The Rock as well. Like, I'm a big Rock. I'll always prefer The Rock when he's a heel. So when he's a baby face, because he's just such a piece of shit. But he was so good in this game. And like oh my God, just to have matches between him and Austin. Like I know it's one of the most famous rivalries of all time, but like just to have matches between those two in this game and to be rock bottoming The Rock and to be stunning Stone Cold and to be flipping off Stone Cold and my God, man.
Yeah. Fuck. And you're right. Heel Rock is, a lot of wrestlers have said the best gimmicks are your personalities just cranked up to 10.
Yeah.
So when The Rock figured out, like, I just need to be like a brashier, cockier version of me and it'll work. And he just hit the ground running. Like one of my favorite videos to pull up on YouTube is The Rock concert. Like when he's in Sacramento and makes fun of the Sacramento Kings. Like that's still one of my favorite promos. And that's when he was starting to go Hollywood, right? That's I think around the time the Scorpion King came out, but they just leaned into that and it absolutely worked perfectly.
He's so talented, man. I love The Rock so much. Like the night
he's gonna win an Oscar at some point. That's my hot take. I don't know when, but I do think he will win an Academy Award for Best Actor at some point.
I hope he does. I know he's got his detractors. Like I know there are listeners to the show that don't like him, and it's like, okay, I guess that's your prerogative. But like, so many wrestlers have tried to transition into actors to various levels of success. But like I've said this before, with the exception of maybe Donald Trump, is The Rock not maybe the most recognizable person on the planet right now? Like, doesn't everybody know who The Rock is right now? Like,
and it's like he's often talked on his Instagram and stuff how like you can tell he's grateful for everything. But you could also tell he's sick of being swarmed everywhere he goes.
Oh
now.
My God, I can't even imagine.
That would be exhausting, man. To not be able to go to the grocery store and have just. And you obviously you want to be nice to the people that help you get to that, but you're right. He's one of those characters that like my mother-in-law would know who Dwayne Johnson is if she saw him somewhere right now. And she could be standing next to Steve Austin and not know who he is. She could be standing next to John Cena, not know who he is. And you're right, like not even just wrestling. Dwayne Johnson is like a global icon. He is so famous. He made a Fast and Furious movie without Vin Diesel, and it still made like $1 billion.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I'm really like, I just as someone that grew up loving him, especially like I've said it many times, corporate champion Rock is my favorite gimmick ever.
Oh yes,
what a detestable piece of shit. And I just okay, I could talk wrestling forever. I'm trying to think like. I think we've pretty well covered. Like I'm looking at pictures of it right now and I'm like, this game still looks good. There's still a modding community out there playing with this game and tweaking it and updating the rosters and updating everything. And people still play this to this day. And we've done this discussion on the show before. And I think like a retro game that is good will always be good. And I've used examples like Super Mario Brothers 3 will always be playable. You know, Sonic 2 will always be playable. But sports games, I think, are different because sports games, we don't get a Mario every year and we don't get a Sonic every year or those, you know, as examples. But like we get sports games every year. And like, Mark, I'll tell you right now, like, I'm never going to play Madden 18 again in my life, but I'll play Tecmo Bowl forever because it's so much fun.
Yep.
And I'll never play NHL 20 again, but you want to play NHL 94? I'm like, fuck yeah, that game is awesome. And a good retro sports title is timeless. And for my money, and by the way, if anyone listening to this is like, pro wrestling's not a real sport, fuck you. If you don't think that this game is in that, like, I will go as far as to say that WWF No Mercy is on the Mount Rushmore of retro sports games. Like, it is that good. It is with NHL 94 and those, like, it's right there. It is just ageless. And it's the best wrestling game from the best wrestling era on arguably the best multiplayer retro console ever. And it's just almost perfect. It's almost perfect. I
hate how you mentioned there's still modders out there playing it now, because as soon as we wrap up, I'm going to go find those and I'm going to create all the current superstars from WWE and AEW and put them on this game. Because you're right, we haven't even got into that. Like, the creative mode, there's wrestlers that aren't in this game, but the creative mode, like, I don't do that too much with the current games, but this was an era for that where we would spend, you'd spend hours building up your roster just by creating those guys, right? And that was almost as fun as the game itself at times.
Well, we used to, because this was during my Cold Lake Championship Wrestling, backyard wrestling days. Like, that was all we did. And so we had all of ourselves in all of our games because we would use the transfer packs so that you could move each other to each other's games. And so, like, every one of us created our actual character and took the time to go through. And like, when I created a wrestler in WWE 2K22 for the career mode, but I didn't set all I set my finisher and stuff. And other than that, I was like, I just picked a generic moveset and I was like, that's good enough. But yeah, like when we were, when I was younger and we would play these games, like I set everything. Like every minor detail. And it was so much like we used to basically run the invasion angle, but it was like Cold Lake Championship Wrestling versus WWF. And we were like us versus them type shit. And it was so much fun. And you got to remember I know people take that for granted now, but like WCW NWO Revenge did not have a creative mode. You could tweak wrestlers, but you couldn't create new wrestlers. Yeah. And then WrestleMania 2000 had to create a wrestler that was like, okay. But like No Mercy's create a wrestler was, in my opinion, it was the perfect balance between complex enough without being what they are today, where like you can tweak how many nose hairs you have and shit.
Yeah. And it's something I talked about how the music industry has kind of changed similar to video games, but I sometimes feel like 10 options is almost better than 110 options at times. You made the best with, and maybe that's not the right way to word it, but just, it was everything about this, just the right amount.
Yeah.
You're not drowning with decisions. You couldn't, the nose hair example is the perfect. I was playing FIFA for the PS5 and creating my coach. Like, I really don't care what color his eyebrows are. Right. Can I just go play a game right now and just give me 10 options to choose from and I'll pick one of them. I'm not playing this game because I want gray, you know what I mean? Like, this was just the right amount of options. Totally. If you give people too many options, they'll take forever sometimes.
Yeah, but now I will say, because I said that, I can't remember what we were watching. I can't remember what game it was. It might have been Starfield. But I said I didn't care about the super deep create a character, and I did get shit from some people who are like, I love that stuff. So like, I just want to say, hey, like the cool thing about the modern ones is like with WWE 2K22, it's insane what you can do with it if you want to take the time, and you can go online and download other people's creations. And I do love that, because basically every wrestler that's ever wrestled in any major company has been created on WWE 2K22, and you can just download them and add them to your roster and have a dream roster and stuff. That's rad. But I don't do that. I like downloading stuff, but like, and you got to remember too, obviously this is the Nintendo 64. This is a long time ago. It was, I agree with you. It was deep enough that you could pretty well make anyone you wanted within reason, but simple enough that it didn't take 12 hours to do it. And I liked that myself. So
no, totally. This was just the right, you said it best. It's like the right era, just the right amount of everything really in this game. And that's the fact that it still holds up, man. Like I said right off the top, I still play this game, like not as much as I did in the summer of like 2001 and 2002, but it's certainly still like, it's like comfort food, man. It's like sliding into your favorite pair of sweats.
Totally. And I just feel like couch co-op is kind of a dead breed. Like, I don't remember the last time I sat in a room with somebody other than my girlfriend and played video games with them.
Yeah.
And like, that's like, I mean, like, listen, I love the single player in this game, but like, that's what I want to do is play it with my friends.
Of course, yeah.
And go, you know, come to blows and fuck them over as guest referee, because that was the funnest start to do.
Absolutely.
Okay, we got to score this fucking thing. I mean, like, the obvious one is to score it out of 64, but that's kind of lame. You know what? Let's say it came out in 2000, so we'll go with that. That's a good score. So, Mark, I'll ask you, my friend, out of 2000, what would you score WWF No Mercy?
Well, I don't think this game is perfect, but that doesn't mean it's not great. So I'm going to go with the year I was born and say this game is 1989 out of 2000.
Beautiful. That's a pretty good fucking score. That's like a 9.9.
It's a very good score, yes. Favorable. 2 thumbs up if I was Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah, like, I mean, I know it makes for bad radio, but like, you've all listened to me just basically suck this game's dick for an hour. I can't shit on it now. So yeah, like, it's a 1990 out of 2000. It's almost perfect. It's the only complaint I have with it is that Royal Rumble mode pisses me off sometimes.
And also, if we really want to get inside wrestling, the Royal Rumble is 30 individuals, not 34. Let's just get that out of the way.
Yes, I forgot about that. Son of a... You know what? 1980. Forget it. You just cost yourself 10 points on my 2,000-point useless scale. That drives me goddamn bananas. You're right. That's not a hard tweak to make anyways.
Yes.
Bullshit. All right, well, dude, listen, thanks for doing this. And I know that you're a bit of a podcaster yourself to play off a Spider-Man meme. So I'll shut up for a second. What are you up to these days?
So my friend Corey and I, we used to work together many years ago at a radio station, and our conversation kind of in the back room would always just be about movies, comics, and television. And we haven't worked together for a long time. About a year ago, kind of in the middle of COVID, we'd always kind of kicked around the ideas of starting a podcast. So we finally did. We felt there was enough stuff week to week to chat about, and it kind of really expanded from there. It started in January of 2021. We did our first episode of MCTV, and ever since then, we just keep trucking along. There's clearly enough stuff on Disney, week to week stuff we cover. We love the Marvel stuff. We love the Star Wars stuff. We love the DC. We love the week to week CW shows. So we have 2 episodes a week on MCTV. One is a news dump where we basically chat about all the pop culture news that has happened. And then in the middle of the week, we do a recap episode. So sometimes it's about a show that's going week to week. Sometimes it's a movie that we love and it's celebrating an anniversary. Or sometimes it's a movie we haven't ever seen. Like, we just launched something that once a month now, we're going to be watching a Fast and Furious movie. We had never watched those, and we wanted an excuse to watch those. So we're doing things like that. And yeah, we're growing and growing and growing. And basically it's like this, man. It's just 2 guys talking about the stuff they want to talk about, and we just have so much fun doing it. Disney Plus, we're not paid by Disney Plus, but we basically just blow Disney for 2 hours a week, and we have a lot of fun doing it. We've been able to have some like watch parties and meetups as well. So we just keep on growing. If you like Remember the Game, please hop on over to MCTV, because I'm sure there's some sort of crossover at some point if you like movies, comics, or television. Absolutely.
Dude, I take shit from people all the time because I don't know enough about movies and television. So for all of you that keep yelling at me because I don't know anything about movies and television, there you go. I got you covered.
Yeah.
Get over there. So you can find their information in the description of this podcast. Remember the Game seal of approval, because I don't actually know Corey, but I do know Mark, and Mark's a fucking gem. So I highly, highly recommend you guys check out their podcast. And listen, Mark, it has been... I seriously think you and I had a discussion about you coming on the show before COVID, and then it has just kind of been bumped. I'm so glad this finally happened. We will not wait 205 episodes to fucking do this again. I promise that.
Adam, this was so much fun. And for everyone listening too, like, Adam was super helpful for Corey and I launching MCTV as well. So thank you. This has been an honor. And yes, I hope we don't have to wait this long again. This was so much fun. We'll have to get Corey on as well, because I think he's closer to your age. He's a little bit older than me. So he probably has a lot of, like, he's got some good video game stories as well. When I told him we were doing No Mercy, he had the same kind of like, you could see him flash back to being 18 years old, playing in his buddy's basement. So yes, thank you, Adam, for having me on. Thanks for plugging MCTV. Yes, we have to do this again very soon.
My pleasure, buddy. Thanks for doing this. Fuck yeah. That's going to do it for this week's episode. Mark, dude, I'm so glad we were finally able to hook up and do a podcast together. Thank you so much for giving me a call and talking WWF No Mercy, and to every single one of you Marks right now, whether this was your first podcast or your 205th episode of Remember the Game, thank you so much for listening. As Mark mentioned, he hosts or co-hosts the MCTV podcast, a great show about movies, comic books, TV, nerd culture, just in general. You can find them wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find all of their information in the description of this show. Tell them I sent you. I don't think it'll get you anything, but it would make me feel good. Mark, thanks again for doing this. We will hook up again soon. And listen, if you enjoyed this podcast and you were like, hey, that guy's voice isn't completely unlistenable, maybe leave us a nice review on your podcast service of choice. I have no idea what they accomplish, but I know the good podcasts ask for them, and we're one of the good podcasts now. So we're going to ask for them too. I'd appreciate nice reviews. And if you're like, man, I need more of this, maybe consider supporting us on Patreon. Our membership started at just $2 for the entire month, and you get 2 additional podcasts every week. Including Expansion Pass, which is just random video game talk, and Game Patch, which is modern game news. Although I will throw out a disclaimer, very, very rare that I miss a Patreon episode. There's no Game Patch next week because I'll be away on holidays. But that's very, very rare. So just, patreon.com/remember the game. 5% of your pledge will be donated to the Stollery Children's Hospital as well. So it's just wins all around. I have a P.O. Box. You can find our address at rememberthegamepodcast.com. If you're interested, don't shoot me anything big. I feel bad when I get giant gifts. Just send me a postcard or a letter or something. Let me know where you're listening. And I'm really behind on it, but I will send you one back and we'll be friends. That'd be really neat. And again, don't forget I'm on Twitch. Whenever I can be, twitch.tv/rememberthegame. I don't beg for subs or anything. I just like to play video games and argue with the nerds that come by and hang out. So come by and hang out and I'll argue with you. That's going to do it for this week's episode. Quick note, next week there will not be a Remember the Game as I will be away from the house. So I'm going to be releasing an older episode of Expansion Pass. It's kind of like a free, your first bump is free. I'll kind of give you a free sample. That'll be going live next week. And then on what's 2 weeks from today? The 20th, Wednesday, July, is that it? The 20th? Yeah. Wednesday, July 20th will be Remember the Game number 206, a very special episode because for the first time in over 200 episodes, I will not be hosting it. I will be stepping away from the microphone. My good friends Mark and Bradley McHugh have the keys to the kingdom, and they will be reviewing The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask so that you'll all stop fucking asking me to do it because I'm never playing that game again. So a couple of crazy episodes coming up, and then we'll get back to normal on the 27th, all right? Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. You're the best. I'm going to shout out some Patreons and get the fuck out of here. Take it easy, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Cheers. Goodbye. Remember the Game is brought to you by our Patreons. I could not puke up all the content I churn out every week without all of your support. The following people are the senior executive vice president level or higher over on the old Patreon box, and I'd like to take a moment to thank them all personally by fucking up a bunch of their names. So a huge, huge thank you to Makeshift Mallow, Magic Money, Joe Buck, Sharonic, Andre, Keegs and his stupid arrow handle, James Clark, Dave McGee, DNA Gaming, Slick Rick, Doug Dorn, Charlie Medeiros, Andrew Wright, Jordan, The Good Enough Gamer on YouTube, Fraser Burns, Lil Bunny Fufu 89, Angry Ticks, Dave Thompson, No One Cares, Brandon O'Brien, Aaron Lawson, Matt McLean, Nathan Tremblay, Ryan Kinchin, Mike Maloney, G9PSX, Raging Demon, Wolfgang Darren, Sam Wright, Andy Hudson, Chris Copland, Doogie, Wolf Magic 21, Johnny CCDC, Joe LeBlanc, Squints, Titan 420, Zonko 504, Russell Aldridge, Jeff Bergeron, Captain N, Game Nomad Misi, Daniel, Tunable Power, John Woodruff, Just a Fish, Noob Q, Super Dad Bros Podcast, Gonzalo, Holmes, Zach Shepard, Chris Dickin, Matthew D'Amico, Frosty Feet 492, Triple, Austin Cook, Elijah Burns, Stephen Parnell, Ray San Wantongo, DBXJ, Steve Dalp, Phil McCracken, Trav H, Mizuru, Nicholas Chaffee, David Marcus, Phil Lencher, Ruben Elizald, Eric James, Riley Turvey, C-Spin, Thomas Smith, Nicola, Leroy Westrich, Dark Squall, Jerry the 3D Printed Saustrich, Evolva, Sean Ramos, Boston Porksaw, DB Cooper, Stud Still Smash, Mojo the Helper Monkey, Gabe, Dan Fusselman, Aaron Mitson, Decoy Man, John Jameson, Tyler Nightmare, Blaine the Hoagie Man, Terry Douglas, Benjamin Swiller, Pet My Peeve Podcast, Tristan Teen the Great, Hegel Waffle, K-Atch, Jimothy, Joe Stone, Chris Williams, Nicole Novak, Cody Richardson, General Fury, Salty by Design, Jason Workman, Dem Boys on the Roof, Max Legroom, James Juan Francesco, The Jamadian Nightmare, Matt Hamilton, Nomad, James Black, Sam Carpenter, Nerdy Hybrid, Tug Jones, Adam Fletcher, Colin Bollinger, Justified01, Lucas Charleston, Joey Mercury, You Lick My Butt, IR Jackal, Robert Washburn, Thierand, Isaias, Timmy the Exuberant Turtle, Brian Neese, Christian Gabriel, Big Poppy Logan, John M. Watkins, Tally 311, Beef Dingleberry, Michael Barjudinas, I fucked that one up. Hitchy Poo. Daniel Matthews. That's all. My spreadsheet froze for half a second, and then when it unfroze, I was at the top. Wow. Thank you all so much for the support. If I fucked up your names, wear it as a badge of honor. Take it easy. I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Purple Monkey Dishwasher, baby.